she's either going to resign at some point, and then a by-election is going to kick in. So that's going to be interesting. Or we are going to have an election early next spring that they know is coming, and they're just putting this off as long as possible. Everyone knows Freeland stepped down from cabinet to take the Ukraine role, and that she had accepted the full-time CEO job at the Rhodes Trust. Now we've learned she's preparing to move to the UK to start that job in July of 2026. Now she can't hold that job and remain an MP at the same time, so with that timeline, what does that mean? Let's take a look. Freeland to move to UK for CEO job at Rhodes Trust. Liberal MP Chrystia Freeland will move to Oxford, England to take on a new position next summer administering the Rhodes Trust, the educational charity, confirmed Thursday. The charity is famous for its prestigious Rhodes Scholarship, which offers students from around the world the chance to study at the University of Oxford. It announced Wednesday evening that Freeland has been appointed CEO of the Rhodes Trust and Warden of Rhodes House, a building on the university's campus, starting July 1st, 2026. Spokesperson Babette Littlemore confirmed by phone Freeland will move to Oxford for the role, but Freeland herself has not announced plans to resign as a Member of Parliament. Freeland's office did not respond to calls or emails Thursday. Her local Liberal Riding Association for University Rosedale did not have information related to her new role, presumed departure, or preparations for an eventual candidate nomination race for a by-election. Neither the Prime Minister's office nor the House of Commons Speaker's office had further information. So this starts to raise some interesting questions, because as an MP, Chrystia Freeland is paid handsomely, over $200,000 Canadian, to represent her riding of University of Rosedale. And although MPs are allowed to, manage their businesses and kind of run things on the side, that's fine as long as it's declared, it's disclosed, and it's not going to cause a conflict of interest, which is, how they're supposed to be advised by the ethics commissioner. But something like this is a little different. And Chrystia Freeland, when this was initially announced, she said, I'm not going to be resigning. I'm just not going to be running in the next election. Well, that's interesting, because if that's still your position, when's the next election going to be? Because if you're starting this position at July 1st of 2026, and you said that you're not going to resign, and you're just not going to run in the next election, does that mean that there's going to be an election next year? That's the speculation. And we haven't heard one thing or the other on that. We're just reading the tea leaves and providing our opinion based on the political strategy as we see it. But there's some background information that folks should know as to why this is actually a problem for her in terms of being an MP and also taking this full-time position. And for that, let's go to some of the rules governing what employment the MPs can actually engage in. So this is from the Office of the Ethics Commissioner, folks, and this talks about offers of outside employment. So, what does the Conflict of Interest Act require? Well, the Act prohibits public office holders from being influenced in the exercise of an official power, duty, or function by plans for or offers of outside employment. When reporting, public office holders receive or accept firm offers of outside employment, that is, employment not subject to the Act, they must disclose this information to the Commissioner's office, which she did. Firm offers of outside employment while you are a reporting public office holder. You must disclose all firm offers of outside employment to the Commissioner's office within 7 calendar days after receiving them. The term quote-unquote outside employment refers to employment that falls outside the scope of the Act's substantive conflict of interest rules and only includes positions that create an employee-employer relationship. It encompasses employment with the private sector or provincial or municipal government entity or a political party. It does not include employment as a public office holder or with a federal government entity or federal parliamentary entity. Federal government entity includes a department or agency of the Government of Canada, a Crown corporation established by or under an Act of Parliament, a fully owned subsidiary of a Crown corporation, and any entity to which the Governor in Council may appoint a person, etc., etc., etc. 3. Accepting an offer of outside employment while you are a reporting public office holder. If you subsequently accept an offer of outside employment, you must disclose this acceptance in writing to the Commissioner's office within 7 calendar days. You should not wait until a letter of offer or agreement is formally signed and executed. You should advise the Commissioner's office when you have accepted the offer, even if there are still some matters open to negotiation between you and your future employer, such as a starting date, salary, and benefits. When the Commissioner's office receives your disclosure, your advisor will give you additional guidance on your current and post-employment obligations. So what does that all basically say? Well, if you're an MP, minister, whatever, and you receive an offer of employment from a firm that's outside what's governed by the Conflict of Interest Act, you have to disclose that. Off you go. Now, this is going to be something that she's going to have to disclose. And she's also not allowed to be influenced by any foreign entity, any foreign country, that sort of thing. So the issue here is that the fact that she's going to be working for a firm in England, not in Canada, and even in Canada, that's even debatable. But especially in the fact that she's going to be working for a firm in England, that's going to create a problem because now she is under the influence and she works for someone in England, and she works for potentially the governing body of the Oxford University, and that has ties into the Crown, right? So you can't be holding public office as well as being the CEO of an organization that is over in England. That's just not compatible with this. So she's going to have to leave their seat, and this you can check out the link in the description. This actually goes down to the expectation of when you leave your seat, right? So it's expecting you to not be there. So this is why we're saying, well, if she's intending not to leave her seat and just not going to run in the next election, then evidently there's some thought within the Liberal Party that they're either expecting to call or they're going to be expecting to have to go to an election in the spring. Now, let's say that situation isn't the case. What's the other option? Well, the other option is that she is waiting to resign and delay this as long as possible. Her office hasn't said anything. The Prime Minister's office hasn't said anything. Nobody has said anything. So it's possible that she's just trying to push this off as long as possible, and Carney is saying, this would be a real headache right now if another person actually stepped down and left caucus shortly after being elected. That wouldn't look too good for me. Chrystia, could you wait? So that's a possibility. But the third possibility, which I think is the most unlikely one, but it would be funny if it happened, is if she tried to do both. If she tried to do both, the Liberals, and Mark Carney would be absolutely blasted. For one reason, well, for many reasons, but this is the main reason. So we all know that MPs make just over $200,000 Canadian. The question is how much is she going to be making as the CEO for this Rhodes Trust? Well, Rhodes Trust. So this was an excerpt of the publicly available tax filings from the 2024 year of the Rhodes Trust. This is what the revenue was, and this is all in US dollars, folks. So just keep that in mind. This is not Canadian, this is US dollars. So, about 30-40% more. So 84 million in revenue, 71 in expenses, total assets of about 747 million, and total liabilities about 68 million. Now we get down to this. So this is the fiscal year ending June of last year. And here we've outlined some of the key office holders that are actually in charge of the Rose Trust. And the previous CEO, Dr. Elizabeth Kiss, Warden and CEO, that's the position that Chrystia Freeland is going to be taking on, is $347,609. And if you add the other, compensation, which is probably bonuses and vacation and benefits and all that, that's $67,000. So that takes it over $400,000 US. Just for the sake of argument, let's just keep it at $347,000 US. And when you add on the Canadian exchange and all of that, that comes out to about $486,000 Canadian. Think about that. And also think about the fact that Mark Carney only makes $406,000 as the Prime Minister of Canada. So as the CEO of the Rhodes Trust, she's going to be making about $80,000 more than Mark Carney is for being the CEO of that Rhodes Trust. Now look at the political fallout of what would happen if she tried to do both. So she's representing the riding of University Rosedale, representing constituents in the House of Commons, except she's not in the House of Commons because she's moved to the UK to actually do this new job. So she's being paid over $200,000 a year to actually not do what she's supposed to do, which is to be in Ottawa. And then she's getting paid $486,000 a year to be the CEO of Rhodes Trust for a grand total of around $686,000 a year, both by the Canadian taxpayers and the Rhodes Trust. So if she does decide to do that, have at her. I don't think that she's going to. I think that everyone would be advising her not to. But if she did, this would be a feeding frenzy on the Liberals, Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney. Because how corrupt is that you're getting $200,000 in taxpayer money and you're not even showing up to Ottawa, you're not representing your constituents, you're not even doing your job because you have another full-time job in England. So it's unlikely that that's the scenario that's going to happen. So that leaves the other two. She's either going to resign at some point and then a by-election is going to kick in. So that's going to be interesting. Or we are going to have an election early next spring that they know is coming and they're just putting this off as long as possible. So that's the interesting angle to this Chrystia Freeland story, folks. And we're going to be following it as it plays out, and we'll see which path this takes. But either way, it's going to be an interesting ride for Mark Carney.